Hello again. We're here tonight and I have the lovely cockstick that Fran Benson sent me. Now, I said the other night about how our ancestors used to hunt with these sticks, and they're basically a throwing stick. And my great-grandfather used to throw this stick at the hares when they believed the landlord Pilkington, when he was in Tor, believed that his cattle were bewitched by a witch who practiced witchcraft, obviously, and she was suckling his cows. His cows stopped giving milk. And this would have been a similar stick to the one that threw at them. But they were also used where they used to put them up their sleeve. Because understand, back in the 1870s, 1880s, when my great-grandfather was around Tor and Derry Coffee and them places in County Westmeath, just on the Offaly border, that when I was a boy, I remember travelling the bogs and all the old passes that were hundreds of years old, and that I was walking them at night time. I was fascinated with them, and that my father, my grandfather and my great-grandfather had walked the exact same paths that I was walking, and many of them went round the bog, all the different bogs, and it was to avoid bumping into soldiers. There'd be soldiers that would be running patrols. They had, I think they had a barracks back in the 1880s at the back of the castle in Terrell's Pass, and used to be up to 200 soldiers there. And the village green, where the barrack tree is now, some of them houses there was where the officers used to stay. But some of these would have been like, you can imagine how treacherous they were back in them days. But again, you know, the storytellers left an absolute wealth of stories of how things actually were. Because when you read any of the newspaper reports, they were all by English journalists, and they were all biased and very anti-Irish. But I loved the storytellers and the stories that I picked up. And my father told me a great story one day. We were walking in the bog, and I told him about a place called the Long Hills in just down the bog boring from me. And it was a lovely place, and it was close to the edge of Bunny Hill Bog. And I used to climb up this tree, and I was able to see the remains of about 7 cottages, the stone remains in the ground, sticking up out of it like last year's acorns. And I could tell by these houses, they had a vegetable patch one side where you could see where the ridges of potatoes that they made were still in the ground, and they had flower beds the other side, and you could still see it in the ground when you climbed up this tree. And I was telling this to my father one day, and he goes, "Oh yeah," he said, there used to be a big fella, he said, lived down there, he said, Joe Geoghegan, oh, he said, and he carried the cockstick, he said, and he never was associated with anyone else, he said, never joined the brotherhood or anything, he said, but the things that man done, he said, he was a huge man, he says, of 6'3", and built like a shed, he said, and what he used to do was, he said he made his living, he had a couple of horses, draft horses, and he made his living doing contract work, ploughing and harvesting and all that for the bigger farmers. And he said he used to go out, he said, he said he used to carry the stick. And he said often waited in ambush, and a couple of soldiers would be coming along or be at a checkpoint, he said, and he said he'd do them. The skull straight across the skull. These are very heavy sticks, like. And but he said one day, he said it would have been around in the 1870s. He said there was one particular soldier that was stationed in the village of Terrell's Pass, and he was known to, he used to watch when a woman would be working in a field on her own, tinning turnips or doing something, and he'd go out and rape her, and he'd done it many times. And this Joe Geoghegan, he said, he used to live in one of them cottages down there in the Long Hills, he said, and he extended the doorway, the lintel over the door, he says, he extended it 2 foot higher. He said he used to bring his horse in. He didn't keep a dog. He kept a horse, and there was only 2 rooms. He stayed in one, and the horse stayed in the other, he said, but the horse always gave him warning when somebody would be approaching at night, because they tried to ambush him a couple of times. But he said, this particular day, he said to my grandfather and his mate Patsy Kelly, lads, he said, I want you to do something for me. He said, go into the village, he said, and go to such a public house. He said, there's 2 British soldiers in there drinking, he said, and they're quite well on it. He said, I want the 2 of you to go in and pretend you are well on it, and pretend that, I think he said it was, used to be Miss Burnsfield. Now I might have the name wrong there, I'm not sure. I'm sure he said Miss Burnsfield, where the present cemetery is now. In them days it used to be the Clonfad cemetery, and that cemetery now that we know of was just a field. And he said, talk loudly and say, there's a certain woman, mention a name, that she's out there tinning turnips, and that she was real gamey, and only I'm a married man, I would have gone and all this cracking. So this is what they done anyway, and we got this particular soldier that had been attacking and raping these women. He left 10 minutes after this was going on, and down he went to the field. And there was Geoghegan was down on his knees like that with a shawl over him, weak, the whole lot, done up as a woman. And as the soldier approached him, he just stood up like this, held the cockstick in his hand. By Jesus, mister, he says, I've been waiting for you. He says, you're never going to do this ever again. And they reckon he didn't kill him, but he broke him up so badly, he was sent back to England in a wheelchair. And he never had any quality of life after that. And that's some of the things that our ancestors used to do, you know. And you often read in how savage the English soldiers were, and which they were. But you know, when you hear the real stories that came down from the old storytellers of the things that people done, absolutely amazing. And apparently this Joe Geoghegan had 2 musket rifles hidden up on the high bank, wrapped in Hessian sacks, and he was off and out. They used to say he used to go out on his own at night and ambush these British soldiers, you know. Brave men, you know. That's some story.